Have you ever felt like you're living a life that isn't truly yours? Feeling like you're living on autopilot, wearing a mask, doing what's expected, but deep down, you know it's not really you. I remember feeling that way myself, constantly adapting to what others wanted. I had this nagging sense that I was betraying something deeper inside me, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Then, Carl Jung's concept of individuality hit me like a wake-up call. He asked the question that I had been avoiding for years: who are you beneath the mask? And when I really started digging into that question, it changed everything. Maybe you've had a moment like that too, where you stopped and questioned what you were doing, why you were following the crowd. It's a powerful moment, isn't it? If you've read Jung's books, you've probably felt that pull, the urge to dive deeper into who you really are. Let me ask you something. How often do you feel like you're living as your true self? For years, I thought my ego was my real identity. The ego is that part of us that handles the day-to-day stuff, how we present ourselves, how we manage our roles in society. But here's the problem. While the ego is necessary for navigating the world, it often becomes a barrier to personal growth. There was a time when I constantly sought approval, trying to meet expectations, thinking that was me being successful. But Jung's work helped me see that this wasn't individuality. It was conformity, dressed up as self-expression. Jung teaches that the ego is just one small part of who we are. Beneath it lies the self, the totality of both our conscious and unconscious mind. The self is the real you, the part that drives your inner growth, even when you're unaware of it. The more I explored this, the more I realized how much of my life had been spent chasing the wrong things: validation, success, recognition. It was eye-opening and, honestly, a little painful to realize how out of sync I was with my deeper self. Individuality, I learned, isn't about standing out in a crowd or being different in a superficial way. It's about aligning with the self. It's about living in a way that feels true to who you are at the core. When you start to get a taste of that, it's like stepping out of a fog. Individuation is one of Jung's key ideas, and it's not a one-time thing. It's a lifelong journey. It's about integrating all the different parts of yourself, both the parts you know and the parts you've buried deep in your unconscious. When I first started exploring this idea, it felt like a mountain in front of me. Where do you even begin? For me, it was about facing things I had been avoiding for years: insecurities, fear of failure, desires I didn't want to admit I had. At one point, I had convinced myself that these things didn't matter, that I could just ignore them. But Jung teaches us something powerful. If you don't bring these things into your conscious awareness, they'll continue to control you from behind the scenes. And I started seeing that in my own life: unconscious fears popping up in strange ways, unresolved emotions influencing my decisions. It's not easy, right? That feeling of inner conflict, of being torn between who you think you are and who you really are. But once you start this process, bringing these unconscious parts into the light, everything changes. It's like turning on the lights in a dark room. Suddenly you can see what's really been there all along, and it brings you closer to that version of yourself you always sensed was there, but couldn't fully grasp. So how does this journey unfold in real life? How do you start integrating all these parts of yourself? It begins by paying attention, by reflecting on what triggers you, what scares you, what excites you. These are all clues pointing to parts of yourself you need to explore. But there's one aspect of ourselves that's particularly hard to face on this journey: the shadow. You might be making great progress in bringing parts of yourself into the light, but there's always something lurking in the background, controlling your thoughts and behaviors in ways you're not even aware of. That's the shadow at work. Jung's concept of the shadow refers to the parts of ourselves we reject, repress, or disown. These are the traits we think are unacceptable, unworthy, or even dangerous. For years, I would feel intense discomfort when someone pointed out my flaws or criticized me. I'd immediately get defensive, but deep down I knew it wasn't about the criticism. It was about an old wound I hadn't faced. The shadow isn't just our bad qualities. It also contains parts of ourselves we've never allowed to develop. Maybe, like me, you've been taught to repress certain emotions, like anger or vulnerability, because they weren't acceptable growing up. I pushed my anger down for years, thinking it made me a better person, but it didn't go away. It just found other ways to express itself, through passive-aggressive comments or outbursts I couldn't explain. Jung believed that we can't achieve true individuality without confronting the shadow head-on. It's a difficult process, no question about it, but it's liberating. By acknowledging and integrating the shadow, I found a fuller understanding of who I am. I've become more authentic, more whole, and less controlled by unconscious forces. And here's something practical. Jung suggested paying attention to your emotional reactions, especially when they seem out of proportion. That's actually your shadow waving at you. As I said, I used to react strongly to criticism, feeling defensive, maybe even angry. That reaction probably was my shadow at play. By confronting that hidden insecurity, I'm able to disarm its power over me. That's the essence of shadow work, shining a light on the parts of yourself you've denied. A tool that might be helpful with this? Journaling. Writing down my reactions and asking myself, why am I so upset by this? Led me to uncover parts of myself I had ignored all this time. But the shadow isn't the only unconscious force shaping our lives. Jung also believed that archetypes play a huge role in how we see ourselves and interact with the world. We see these archetypes everywhere today, in the roles we play at work, in our relationships, and especially in how we project ourselves online. Think about how social media often encourages the hero archetype, pushing us to constantly strive for more, to prove ourselves. But in today's world, the pull away from individuality is stronger than ever. How can we balance these archetypal forces with our true selves? Jung's theory of archetypes is one of his most fascinating contributions to psychology. Archetypes are universal, primordial images and symbols that reside in the collective unconscious. These patterns shape the way we experience the world, influencing our behaviors, relationships, and even our sense of identity. I started noticing archetypes showing up in my own life, like the hero. The hero archetype is the part of us that wants to overcome challenges and grow. I've always had this drive to push through obstacles, to be the one who saves the day. But here's where it gets tricky. When we over-identify with the hero, it can lead to burnout or the belief that we always need to be the savior, taking on too much. I realized that this pattern was causing me to spread myself too thin, always taking on more than I should. Then there's the wise old man, the archetype of wisdom and guidance. I'd often find myself searching for deeper understanding, constantly seeking knowledge. But even this has a shadow side. I've caught myself intellectualizing emotions, distancing myself from them because I thought I had to figure everything out logically. Jung showed me that relying too much on any one archetype can create imbalance. Recognizing these archetypes in my life allowed me to take a step back and see how they influence my decisions. When you become aware of these patterns, you can consciously choose how they shape your individuality. And let's be real, individuation becomes even more challenging in today's world. Social media bombards us with images of how we're supposed to look, behave, and succeed. We live in a culture that's always pulling us away from our authentic selves and into external expectations. Jung saw this struggle coming long before the digital age, and he warned that society pushes us to adopt a persona, the social mask we wear to fit in. I've worn that mask myself, and maybe you have too. We put it on to meet expectations, but the danger is that over time, we lose sight of who we are underneath it. The key is mindfulness, being aware of when we're acting from our persona versus when we're being authentic. This is where the real work of individuation comes into play. Jung's ideas on individuality are more relevant than ever, offering a roadmap for staying grounded in your true self in a world that constantly tries to pull you away from it. It's not just a theory, it's a call to action. It's about shedding the false layers, facing your shadow, and integrating all the parts of yourself. I've experienced firsthand how liberating this process can be. It's tough, sure, but it's also the only way to live a full, authentic life. Let me leave you with one of Jung's quotes that always sticks with me. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That quote kept me going when the journey felt hard. If you've ever felt that tension between who you are and who the world expects you to be, know that you're not alone. Jung's work has been my guide, and it can be yours too. The journey isn't easy, but it's the only way to true freedom. Keep going. The real you is waiting.